What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Ross Reviews, where today we are doing something incredibly special. This is a 1968 ZB Fairlane, and look, this is something you just do not see every day. This has got to be seriously one of the oldest cars I've reviewed. And, just sitting in this driver's seat today, driving this thing, it is absolutely an experience. Now, just before we continue, if you are new here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you do get updated on all our weekly uploads. Now, this Fairlane is actually taken from the Americans, funny enough. So, over in America, they had a Ford Fairlane. They came out in a four-door like this, and they also had a coupe version. And this one was introduced to Australia. It's basically pretty well a copycat, but it's assembled locally, with a few minor tweaks here and there that really lets you know that this thing is Australian, i.e. up on the bonnet, you've got a Southern Cross badge. In the rear, you've got another badge of the Southern Cross, and in the gauge cluster here, in between your oil pressure and your temp and fuel there, Southern Crosses. So, I don't think I've actually ever seen a factory Southern Cross put on any vehicle, so that's something new. And again, you're just driving this thing. It's got the old school, speedometer that goes from left to right. So, it's really, really out there. There is no tacho, so you don't have a rev counter or anything, because you don't need it. This from factory had a 302 Windsor and about 210 horsepower from factory, which back in 1968, that was a lot of power though. And, it was a 3-speed auto this thing came out with, so it wasn't setting any, lap records, but put it in perspective, it's like a 50-year-old car, so it is, that was bloody impressive for back then. Now, under the bonnet in this particular ZB, it does not have the factory 302 Windsor anymore. This has got a 351 Windsor, and it's making about 365 horsepower. And my goodness, it's a healthy amount. The owner has actually gone through and done all of the driveline. He's upgraded the diff. This is a serious car, and when you send it in this thing, it will roast the tires, let me tell you. Now again, this has had a full restoration. Not a lot of stuff is completely factory on this car. So look, I'm going to leave a full mods list in the description below because there is too much stuff kind of to cover. There's quite a lot going on in this car. So take a look in the description if you want to know everything that has been done to this particular ZB. Now this car as well, it doesn't have a kickback feature, so it doesn't drive like a traditional modern car. When it's in drive, it's basically in the highest gear, and you've just got to wait for that power to come through. If you want to drop it down a gear and get a little bit more acceleration, you've got to drive it like a manual and kind of run it through the gears here. But my goodness, yeah, look, I generally come out to this road to get a couple of nice corners in, really feel the car, get some handling vibes off of it. And let me tell you, this particular car is definitely just for cruising in, because I would not want to be pushing this car into any hairpins. You really wouldn't want to be throwing this car around because it takes every bit of concentration. You got to really be mindful with the braking. The steering, again, you really got to be mindful of. And man, it just takes all of your concentration, especially when you're new to the vehicle. But wow, it's an experience, and it really does take you back in time, which is such a cool feeling. Now this again is really blowing my mind that this is in miles per hour on the speedo. So, you know, we're showing 120 miles per hour, and even on the odometer, it's in miles. And, you know, being an Australian car, built in Australia, got the Southern Cross all over this thing, you know, it's really trippy to see it in miles per hour. But back in the 60s, the Holdens were in miles per hour, the Fords, like every car that was here was basically in miles per hour. It actually wasn't until 1974 that everyone switched to kilometers. So, you know, that's just a cool fact that I actually didn't know until today. But yeah, you know, look, there's absolutely nothing in this car that feels remotely like any other car I've reviewed. You know, as soon as you sit in it, the seats are just so soft. You know, there's no headrest. The seat belt is just like a piece of cloth that goes around you. The back seats don't even have a seat belt, and they're legally allowed to not have a seat belt, so go figure that. You know, and you grab the wheel here. It's just very large, super thin, no power steering. It really does command you to really feel the car and be cautious with this thing, because look, the brakes are the brakes are not the strongest either I've ever had, but yeah, look, this is a car that you really want to be careful around you know, the bends and going quickly with. You got to be used to this thing. But my goodness, what a cruiser, and boy, it puts a smile on my face. And you just look at this car, man, it's a good looking car. You know, the owner has meticulously gone through basically everything in this car with a full restoration. Like, the paint is immaculate, the wheels look amazing, you know, everything he's done in this car just really does look nice. And you see this thing cruising down the road, it's something else. I really do like as well on these ZBs, the back, they've kind of got that rear skirt that covers the wheel a little bit at the top. And you know, it just gives it a really nice look. Every angle of this car is actually really, really attractive. This color as well, it almost actually reminds me of that Falcon Breeze color. It's not, but it does remind me of that color a little bit, which I absolutely love. Now, price, when this car came out, brand new here in Australia, it was about $4,000. So, you know, you think about that in today's money, it is an absolute bargain, but $4,000 back in 1968 was a bit of money. But these cars have, you know, they've held their value. You know, obviously it really does depend on condition. If you're getting a car that's kind of not being touched, you know, it's been sitting out in the paddock or something, you know, $10,000, $15,000 if you're lucky to find one. But if you're going to get one that's got a restoration done, you know, being kind of restored here, you know, you're going to be upwards of $60,000. And in saying that, though, I think really, especially nowadays, with you know, electric cars starting to come into the game, and you know, petrol prices going through the roof, companies, auto manufacturers saying they're going to stop making petrol cars. You know, I think cars like this are really priceless, because, you know, in not too long, they're really going to be such a rare item, because already these are hidden gems. You don't see them all that often, and yeah, it really is like going back in time and taking one of these. Now, this being the Fairlane, this was sort of the luxury version, the top spec one. They did also come out with an XT Falcon in 1968, though that did have a shorter wheelbase, had a little bit more of a rounded rear end also. In this particular model, look, you get a clock, so that was top trim spec. So in the Falcon, you didn't actually get a clock. You also got rear lights in the Fairlane here, so just a little bit more luxury, you know. In 1968, you know, it was the little things that counted. Now these ZBs came out in 68 to 69, and before that you had the ZA, which came out from 66 to 67, which visually was quite similar to this ZB, though the ZA did have different tail lights, and it also had a slightly smaller Windsor. Now from 70 to 71 you had the ZC, which did get an upgraded Windsor, and it did get a slightly modified body as well. Now this has got a twin 2.5 system all the way through. Sounds very mean also, I will have to say. And again though, it is just trying to push this car. It is, you know, look, I'm not going to be doing it because this thing is so priceless, and I am telling you right now with a straight face, this takes a lot of concentration to drive. You know, the braking, you really got to be careful with the brakes, and the steering. You know, this, you know, you think a Falcon is a boat, but you know, a 1968 Fairlane, that's a real boat. And not in a bad way, but you know, you got to take it back in time, and man, you know, it was a totally different era of cars back then. I honestly get that vibe of like the 50s, 60s, you know, where, you know, you wear a white beater, you slick your hair back, you take your girl for some milkshakes or something at the drive-in, and like, yeah, it's just another era of cool, this car. It is so freaking cool. Now I'm going to finish the video off here today, so a huge thank you to the owner for allowing me to, you know, take out his pride and joy. You know, I don't think anyone else has driven this, you know, so it's a huge ask, and thank you so much, because everyone on the channel is really going to love this. So this thing is so cool, you know, it really takes you back in time, and I absolutely love it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Hope you guys learned something, and yeah, if you liked it, please consider subscribing, hit that like button, and we'll see you on that next video.